Good evening and welcome to RFL. I am Richard French. Well, here we go again. Another horrible shooting, another school shooting, this time at a high school in Parkland, Florida. 17 people are dead, more than a dozen injured, the suspect in custody. We're going to spend a good chunk of the show talking about this tragedy. We will talk to a former FBI director about the investigation, as well as the shooter. We will look at how common school shootings have become. And we'll also look at the politics of it all and whether anything will ever get done in Washington. And that leads me to President Trump's comments on the shooting, where he didn't mention guns. He didn't even say the word. Here's a portion of it.
We are committed to working with state and local leaders to help secure our schools and tackle the difficult issue of mental health. Later this month, I will be meeting with the nation's governors and attorney generals, where making our schools and our children safer will be our top priority.
So again, to reiterate, a full day after the shooting, the president spoke, but again, the word gun was not uttered. Now we're also seeing more video surfacing from inside the school. And we warn you, the images are disturbing, these taken by a fellow student.
Holy oh my God! Oh my God!
Again, that's what students captured on video while they were in a classroom. Here, another student capturing the moment when police stormed into a classroom.
Hands, put your hands up. Please. Put your phones away.
That's what the kids have to go through in Parkland. Well, classes are canceled at the high school for the balance of the week while the community attempts to come to grips with this tragedy. You know, on this program, we have too many times come to you reporting the latest dateline of a mass shooting, too often at a school and too often with too many dead children. I have alternately been heartbroken, I've been outraged, I've made calls for action, I've been stunned by the inaction, and I've been apoplectic at our leaders' lack of leadership. Like you, I'm tired of saying the same things, feeling the same way, and hoping against hope for Congress to show some courage and to stand up to, in particular, the NRA. So tonight, I'd rather use my time to talk to you as a parent and also to ask you to try and imagine being a parent as the unthinkable became your reality. So, at 2:30 in the afternoon, you're sitting in your office or you're getting ready to head over to the school to pick up your kids. Suddenly, your phone pings. It's a text from your teenager. "We're in a real code red, Dad," the text reads. "Come get me ASAP. It's not a drill. I hear gunshots. If I don't make it, I love you, and I appreciated everything you did for me." Your world screeches to a stop. Think about the choice you have to make. Do you respond and risk having your text alert the shooter? Or do you stay silent and risk never telling your child you love them before a shooter is the last thing that they see? In this impossible, helpless limbo, you ask how, you ask why. This is the safest city, you say, in the state. This school, it cares about these kids. It trains them extensively for this very situation. What more could I have done as a parent? You then hop in the car and fly over to the school, breaking every land speed record, only to find mass confusion. Finally, you are directed to a hotel, not sure if you will reunite with your child and squeeze them tighter than you've ever had, or you'll be directed to a separate room and asked to identify the body. Now, if you're one of the lucky ones, you will no doubt feel not only grief for not being so not only will you feel the most relief you've ever felt in your life, but you will also probably feel a tinge of grief for the not so fortunate neighbor, and also maybe a bit of shame that your relief is counterbalanced by an empty hole in that family's heart that will never, ever be filled. You finally drive home with your child and you wonder what the tragedy has done to them and what you wonder you can do to protect your baby. Let's be clear. We don't get medals for feeding, clothing, loving, and protecting our child. It's our job. But are we really doing our job? When Parkland, Florida is becoming Anytown, USA, I want you to listen to what surviving kid, what a child had to say in the aftermath of just the latest tragedy.
What we really need is action, because we can say, yes, we're going to do all these things, thoughts and prayers. What we need more than that is action. Please, this is the 18th one this year. That's unacceptable. We're children. You guys are the adults. You need to take some action and play a role. Work together, come over your politics, and get something done.
Shame on us. As parents, we are failing if our kids have more courage and common sense than we do. Do something, it's the least we can do. We can stop watching our kids getting slaughtered for the crime of going to school. We can say our kids are more important than cowardly shrinking from the NRA. We can love our kids enough to frankly do something. School shootings, as you just heard from that kid himself say, are becoming more and more frequent and more, frankly, common. Our senior political correspondent, Andrew Whitman, he has more on this disturbing situation. And Andrew, as much as the folks say, I know it's bad, I have a feeling when you lay out just how regular of a new American reality this has become, they'll be shocked.
The trend lines, Rich, are disheartening. And we think back to some of the other incidents like Columbine or Virginia Tech or Newtown, where we asked, will this change things? We've actually gone in a much different direction, Rich. It's much less safe than it was even a few years ago. There have been so many school shootings thus far in 2018. It's actually difficult to keep tabs on them all. As that student said, 18 seems to be the number. That's based on verified media reports and assembled by the gun safety group Everytown. Again, 18 school shootings so far in 2018, including one in the Bronx on February 8th. No one was injured in that school shooting, unlike the carnage we saw in Florida yesterday, but the frequency is overwhelming. 18 school shootings in just the first 46 days of the year. That's an average of one school shooting every 2.5 days. But there's no school on weekends. So if you count just weekdays, and that's not even including holidays, you're looking at 18 school shootings in just 34 school days, or one every 1.8 school days. And while the trend has become even more alarming in 2018, it's not like we couldn't or didn't see this coming. Everytown reports 291 school shootings since 2013, with only a handful of states that were able to avoid them. And since the shooting at Columbine High in 1999, CBS News has come to the determination that more than 150,000 American students have endured school shootings. They have been in their school as someone opened fire. But even that is part of a larger trend. More and more gun violence in this nation with more and more victims. So far in 2018, 18 school shootings, 29 mass shootings, nearly 1,800 total gun deaths, and nearly 3,100 total gun injuries in 46 days. Final stat, yesterday's massacre in Florida is now the 9th deadliest mass shooting in American history, continuing another sickening trend. 3 of the deadliest shootings in American history have happened in the last 5 months. Las Vegas, the Texas church shooting, and Parkland. And 5 of the 10 deadliest have happened in the past 26 months, if you add Orlando and San Bernardino to the list, Rich.
In a few minutes, we'll talk to a former FBI director as to the course of investigation. We'll also bring in a couple of our friends who are on the panel to talk about what, if anything, on a political level can be done. It was an interesting conversation. I heard an interview with the governor of Florida, who, for whatever it's worth, and this is maybe an indictment, but as a sign of progress, he says we have to keep guns out of the hands of the mentally ill, which is much more than the president, for example, even said today. But where that might even count as progress, even the discussion of such a thing, you can't get a beer, but you can buy an assault weapon in Florida. You have to be 21 to drink, but you can be 18 and have a weapon, frankly, that was built to kill. And I just think in many ways that crystallizes just how surreal and bizarre a conversation we're having right now.
And Florida is one of the states that has, over time, consistently loosened its gun laws, made it easier for people of all stripes to get guns, whether they're young, whether they have criminal records, whatever the case may be. It's interesting you mentioned that the governor of Florida mentioned mental health, as did the president this morning. The one bit of gun legislation that this president has signed into law makes it easier. It overturns a regulation that was supposed to go into place that would have provided more information for background checks to keep guns out of the hands of the mentally ill. So mental illness is certainly a facet of this conversation that needs to be had, but, and again, I don't mean to make this overly political, overly early in this process. If we're honestly going to talk about mental illness and guns, we need to face the facts that we're making it easier for the mentally ill to get guns. And,
Yep.
and that's the one imprint that he's had on gun laws in this country.
And to me, what I was trying to convey, hopefully successfully, in my editorial is the people paying the price for this are kids. Not always, but by and large, if you look at the tragedies, and the one closest to us obviously has been Newtown, so cowardice on the part of people who are supposed to, quote unquote, be our leaders, who's paying the price? It was teenagers yesterday in Florida. It's been kids even younger than that at other schools in this country, or houses of worship, or whatever the case may be. Just to me, the whole lack of courage is one of the saddest testaments. Not for the first responders, not for those kids, not for those teachers yesterday, but for the people who should be doing everything we can to try and make this less likely. Okay, Andrew, thank you. Coming up next, a former FBI agent is here to talk about the shooter and the investigation. This tragedy feels eerily similar, but there is one big difference. The shooter still alive and being investigated.